Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're unpacking an absolute masterclass in the human condition, and it's all wrapped up in what looks like a super simple event. We're diving into The Ball poem by John Berryman. Now, on the surface, yeah, it's just a story about a little boy losing a toy. But man, it is so much more than that. We usually overlook these tiny childhood moments, right? But we don't realize they're actually the blueprints for how we cope as adults. This poem is literally a profound look at how we learn to survive life. I want you to think back for a second. Try to remember your very first experience with loss. Maybe it was a treasured toy, a pet, or even just a favorite blanket. At the time, it probably felt like the absolute end of the world, right? Well, that lingering nostalgia, that incredibly heavy emotional weight, that exact feeling is what we're focusing on today. So, can losing a simple toy truly teach us how to survive life? John Berryman argues that yeah, it absolutely does. Let's dive in and see exactly how a lost ball turns into a monumental life lesson. All right, let's start with section 1, the simple act of losing. So the inciting incident here is stark, but honestly, it's deeply relatable. The poet is just watching a boy who has just lost his ball. And we're not talking about it rolling under a parked car where you can just grab it. No, it's bounced away, down the street, and fallen right into the water. It is gone forever. I mean, just think about the sheer finality of that water. Imagine that helpless feeling totally washing over the kid as he watches something he loves slip away into the dark current. There's this sudden, heavy quiet right after the splash. It's just a tiny, brief moment in time, but it triggers an absolute earthquake in this child's reality. And the boy at the center of all this, he isn't just mildly annoyed about misplacing a toy. He's an innocent, highly emotional kid who is deeply, deeply attached to his world. The poet observes him standing there stiffly, literally trembling with grief. If you think about what that actually looks and feels like for a child, the rigid posture, the wide-eyed shock, the sudden physical inability to even move, it is just heartbreaking. He's experiencing immense sadness, because really this is probably his very first real collision with permanence. It's his first time losing something super important that he can never ever get back. He's standing right on the edge of a major life lesson. Which brings us to section 2, Beyond the Bouncing Ball. Here, the poet asks a completely pivotal question. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? Let that sink in for a second. Notice he isn't asking, where is the ball? He's asking, what is the boy now? This is brilliant because it pivots us right away from the physical event and forces us to look at the emotional gravity. The boy before the loss is literally a different person than the boy after the loss. His innocence has been punctured. This one event has fundamentally altered his identity in that exact moment. And this brings up a fascinating internal debate. The poet is watching this whole scene unfold and actually thinks about stepping in, maybe tossing the kid a dime to go buy another ball. Because how often do we do that as adults? We see someone hurting, especially a kid, and our immediate instinct is to just fix the sadness with money or a distraction or a quick replacement. But the poet, he decides not to intrude. He realizes there is a massive divide between material possessions and emotional attachments. Sure, material things can be easily replaced with a few coins, but emotional attachments, they carry memories, history, basically a piece of our soul that you just can't buy at a store. If the poet had just handed the kid a new ball, he would have completely robbed him of learning how reality works, because money simply cannot replace memories. Let's move on to section 3, the mechanics of poetry. Okay, so how does the poet actually convey all this raw, messy emotion to us? Well, first we have to look at the structure of the poem itself. Berryman chose to write the Ball poem in free verse, which basically means it doesn't follow a neat, fixed rhyme scheme. And this is a brilliant, totally deliberate choice. I mean, think about it. Grief doesn't have a neat, predictable, bouncy rhythm, right? Grief is chaotic. It's unstructured, it catches you completely off guard, and it leaves you just scrambling for footing. By stripping away that predictable rhyming structure, the poem perfectly mirrors the unpredictable nature of loss itself. It makes the tone feel incredibly thoughtful, sympathetic, and just really raw. Next up, we see Berryman's use of symbolism. Now, symbolism isn't just some dusty academic trick. It's actually the poet's way of hiding massive, universal life truths right inside everyday objects. It's taking a perfectly ordinary scene and layering it with a depth that speaks to the entire human experience. Berryman leans heavily on this, pouring the absolute whole weight of the poem into the most central object of the story. Because, you see, the ball isn't just rubber and air. It's childhood, it's happiness, it's emotional attachment. When that ball bounces merrily down the street and disappears into the dark water, it is a direct, agonizing symbol of the boy's childhood innocence drifting away. It's literally an era of his life slipping into the harbor, unable to ever be retrieved. And to truly anchor us in that feeling, the poet layers in a few other incredibly effective literary devices. He uses striking imagery. We don't just know the ball is gone, we vividly visualize it, bouncing, falling, disappearing. And we deeply feel the boy standing there, trembling, just staring into the water. Then there's repetition. Berryman continually repeats the word ball, circling back to it over and over again. This perfectly captures the boy's obsessive, looping thoughts right after the sorrow hits. He just can't stop thinking about it. And finally, alliteration, stringing together consonant sounds like staring down. If you listen to those harsh, deliberate sounds, they create this distinct musical effect. It physically slows the reading down, matching the heavy, sinking realization that's happening inside the boy's mind. And that leads us to our final section, Part 4, the epistemology of loss. So we've finally arrived at the absolute intellectual peak of our explainer today, the epistemology of loss. Epistemology is basically the theory of knowledge. So understanding the epistemology of loss means understanding the very nature of losing things in life. But it goes way deeper than just the event itself. It's an entire philosophy about understanding our temporary, fragile relationship with the world around us. The poet realizes that this trembling, heartbroken boy staring into the water, he's actually in the middle of a vital awakening. He is learning for the very first time the painful mechanics of how to stand back up after the world takes something away from you. This essentially builds into a universal blueprint for surviving adulthood. The poet lays out the path to maturity as this journey we literally all have to take. Step 1, you have to experience the pain and separation. You can't shield yourself from it, and you definitely can't skip it. Step 2, you must truly accept that possessions and moments are lost. The ball is in the water, the past is in the past, and hey, they aren't coming back. And finally, step 3, you must stand up and move forward with strength. That boy's small, trembling step in the harbor, it's the exact same massive leap we all have to take when we're navigating the really complex griefs of our adult lives. Ultimately, the central theme here is an incredibly profound truth. Loss is a natural, totally unavoidable part of growing up. We simply cannot dodge heartbreak in this life. Things will break, things will be taken, and innocent moments will fade. But while loss is super painful, the maturity we gain from it is a beautiful, necessary evolution. Growing up means learning to face sorrow courageously. It means accepting reality without letting it break us. Material things are going to come and go, but the strength we build by carrying the truth of loss with maturity, that's a real game changer. That stays with us forever. And that brings us full circle. The ball poem isn't really about a lost toy at all. It's about understanding life itself. So I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. What did your first loss teach you about moving forward? How did you learn your own epistemology of loss? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. And hey, keep looking for the profound lessons hidden in life's simplest moments.